Hey cats, what's happening? It is a lovely day here in Northeast Ohio. As you can see, we got a little bit of snow, and boy, oh boy, what a weekend it was. It's in the teens today, so it's very cold, and there's some wind gusts, so you get the wind chill too. But the sun, the UV, I shoveled my sidewalk this morning, and the sun has it pretty well melted off so far, so I'm thankful for that. And I'm hoping this is the last snow that we have this season, because I'm really over it. I'm pretty tired of it. And this weekend will really put the icing on the cake as far as that went. Come on in, I'll tell you about it. Well, I had my brother come up and spend the weekend with me. He arrived Friday afternoon. He is a retired doctor. I'm number one, the oldest. There's another one younger than me, and he's the middle brother. And then there's two younger ones than him. So the doctor came and spent the weekend with me. Took the back bedroom back there, and we had a pretty good time. That Friday that he arrived, I made him a good old home-cooked meal, the kind that Mom would have made for us. And he was pretty surprised. He said, wow, he said, this is just like the old days, like, you know, when Mom would cook for us. I said, well, I still have all of Mom's old recipes, and I kind of wanted to do that for the two of us. It was a special day. It was February 14th, which was Valentine's Day. Yeah. And what's on Valentine's Day? Val and I's wedding anniversary. We got married on Valentine's Day. In 2010, we were married. And we had lived together for years prior to that. So, but we decided to get married in 2010. We got married at the courthouse. It was a free wedding. You had to register ahead of time, but the judge did really nice weddings there, and you know, Christian weddings. He had a like an archway with flowers all over it, right in the courtroom there, and they did 15-minute weddings. You had a certain time slot that you had to be in. I think ours was like 1 o'clock or something like that. We had from 1 to 1:15 was our wedding time slot. So we went, my mom and dad joined us, and my aunt and uncle joined us. And Val and I were wed. After the wedding, they gave us bubbles to blow instead of throwing rice. They didn't want rice all over the courtroom. So we blew bubbles, and then the judge's wife, bless her heart, gave us a nice little wedding cake. You know, just a little mini wedding cake, and it was delicious too. So yeah, we were wed on Valentine's Day. So I made a really nice dinner for my brother and I. We ate here and we had an enjoyable meal. Saturday, my brother and I went down to what we call Amish country, about an hour south of here, and just kind of toured some of the places to go there. The weather started turning sour Saturday, so it was... in the morning, it was snowing, not heavily, but it was snowing. And by the afternoon, it was pouring down heavy drizzle rain. So it was just miserable to do anything outside. So we found some indoor venues down there that we could do, and really had a good time, had a good, enjoyable day. And then in the late afternoon, after we got home, we went into town and had dinner, a nice dinner at one of my favorite restaurants in town. Sunday, though, this was the main event. Sunday was one of my uncle's birthday, the uncle that was at Val and I's wedding. So my aunt and uncle, we went to their house. My uncle had turned 80. It was his 80th birthday party. Sadly, though, my uncle is in his very last days. I mean, literally, he's in hospice. He's at home and he's in a hospital bed right there in the living room. And we must have had 20 people in the house. It was a full house. It was crowded. Uh, all his kids were there and their families, and the my brother and I and my other brother from Youngstown came out. So there was three of us brothers that were there, and we kind of spent the day there. I have another uncle though that's 93 years old, lives in Denver, Colorado. They flew to Cleveland Airport yesterday. Now, let me tell you something about yesterday. The weather went south in a hurry. The temperatures plummeted, and it snowed, and it snowed, and it snowed, and the plows couldn't keep up with the roads. The salt didn't melt the roads off. So the roads were terrible. It was windy, so the snow was drifting over the roads. And I think the top speed was maybe 40 mile an hour in a good area, but you had to slow down sometimes to like 25, 30 mile an hour because the roads were just so terrible. In some places you had this like washboard effect where my whole truck was just like, like I was driving on a washboard just from the compaction of the snow. In other places it was drifted where there was only one lane, and if you had oncoming traffic, you pretty much had to get over as far as you could and almost come to a stop so they could ease past you, and then you could keep going. And these were on the state routes too. These weren't no back roads. So it was very hazardous driving. But I just kept it in four-wheel drive, Well, my uncle is at Cleveland International Airport, and they rented a car, but what did they give him? Like a Dodge Charger, rear-wheel drive with smooth tires. And they couldn't even hardly get out of the parking lot, so they went back in and they said, we can't use this car. We need a four-wheel drive. And to make a long story short, they ended up there almost all day waiting for a four-wheel drive vehicle so they could drive the 1 hour. Well, it usually takes 1 hour from Cleveland to here. I imagine it took them probably, I mean, his wife was driving and she's younger than him, and so she's pretty much more alert than my 93-year-old uncle will not drive anymore. And really, I don't think he's capable of driving anymore because, when you're 93, you just don't have the wits and the reflexes that you had when you were younger. So luckily he decided it was time to hang his hat up when it came to driving. So anyways, they didn't arrive to the party till after 5 o'clock, and we had been there all day. Well, my one brother said, I got to drive all the way back to Youngstown, and it's going to take me like 2 hours to get home in this weather. And he said, I got to get going. I got to leave. I can't wait around for my 93-year-old uncle to arrive. So we came back here to the house, and he jumped in his truck and took off and headed east. My doctor brother and I, we got something to eat here. And then we drove all the way back to my aunt and uncle's house. And by that time, my 93-year-old uncle had arrived. So we all just kind of hung out there, and it was pretty nice, just kind of reminiscing and sharing. And they were so happy to see us. Now, my 80-year-old uncle that was in hospice there, unfortunately, he was like out of it. I mean, he was just like all day. Like, you could have had to go over there and make sure he was still alive. If you tried to talk to him, he couldn't really talk that. We couldn't understand what he was saying. He would just kind of like mumble and showed no expression on his face, of anything of that nature. The most interesting thing to me though was we're all standing around there, and my cousin, she says, all right, everybody, we've got sandwiches in the kitchen, we've got cake, we've got ice cream, there's chips and stuff in there, there's all kinds of food. So, but before we go in there, we're going to say a prayer. And, there's like a pretty full house. And my uncle that's in hospice, that's laying there, in his hospital bed, the blankets up over him, goes, I want Mark to pray. Right out of the blue. Me? Yeah, I guess he wants you to pray, which was really bizarre. It was, I know it was kind of a God moment. I don't know what was going on there, but so I made the blessing, and I blessed him and was thankful for his life, and we don't know how whether he's got a couple days left or a couple weeks left, but he's definitely on his last throes of life, and I just found that real heartwarming that he would choose me to say the prayer for the whole family there, which I'm just a relative. I mean, his children were there, his family was all around him, and but yet he picked me to say the prayer. Oh, anyway, it was a good time. Like I said, my doctor brother and I went back over in the evening and stayed till like 9 o'clock, just talking and having a good time with their family. And so that was the weekend, man. But the weather, and we left there at 9 o'clock yesterday evening to drive home, and the conditions were just horrible. It was usually takes me 20 minutes to get to their house, and on the way home last night it took us over an hour. I mean, the roads were that bad. And finally got home and was happy to get the truck in the garage, get back in the house. So my doctor brother left this morning. He packed up his suitcase and brushed the snow off of his truck and hit the road. With the sun shining, though, the snow plows have been out. They've salted the road, so I think the worst of it's gone. It's not snowing anymore. But it looks like it's going to be a frigid week. We're looking at temperatures in the teens almost all week long. So I'm not up for that either. Again, the colder it gets, the more wood my wood burner stove eats up to heat this place. So that means I gotta go out and cut more firewood, which I'm not against doing. It's just like, just get this winter over with already, We're probably more than halfway through February already, and right around the corner is March. And yeah, we can still get some pretty good crappy weather in March too. We've had some of the worst snowstorms in March, so I'm not going to hold my breath quite yet, you know what I mean? Well, anyway, that was the big weekend. There was a lot going on. Stayed really busy, stayed occupied. A lot of camaraderie with family, so that's always a good thing with me. My 93-year-old uncle asks me, he says, let's see, you lost your wife, what, a couple years ago? I said, yeah, just a little over 2 years ago. He says, so let me ask you a personal question. Are you dating anybody yet? And I said, no, I'm not dating anybody. He looks all surprised. Why not? He's on his third wife. I said, I really don't have any interest in dating anybody right now. And he just was like, couldn't understand it. Like, why wouldn't you go out pursuing another woman? I said, look, I'm comfortable where I'm at, so let's just leave it at that, He was something else, though. He's a character. He's a character from Denver, Colorado. Yeah, Coloradoan. So we're sitting there talking to my 93-year-old uncle. And he was telling me that, he said, I had one of the most sobering moments in my life here recently. And was kind of puzzled as to what he was talking about, but I let him continue. And he said, it's like 4 miles for me to drive from where I live to this facility that he would go to. And he said, just maybe not even a year or two ago, he was still driving, but he would get to the point where he would forget the way. He'd be driving along and forget where he was, and he said, I'd get so confused. He said one time I stopped in the middle of an intersection and just put my hands in my head and just I was just lost. I even though it was a short distance to go, and I had traveled it hundreds of times, he said I just couldn't do it anymore. It was too difficult. And he said I finally came to the realization that I had to give up driving. And he said it was the hardest thing for me to do, but he said I couldn't do it anymore. Well, fortunately, he was able to throw the towel in on his driving abilities before, he got into an accident or ended up dead somewhere or and so we said, well, what was your solution? How did you take the bus? And he said, well, from now on, I just use Uber. He said, I pay a monthly subscription to Uber, and whenever I need them, any time of the day, he says, I call, and somebody comes, picks me up, and zips me right to where I need to be. But he said, it still is a hard pill for me to swallow that I couldn't drive anymore. And he said that was one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do, was to give up my driving ability. And the more I thought about it, I started thinking about myself as a biker, and some of you guys as bikers, that when you come to that day where you realize you can't ride anymore. And I know there's some of you guys that can't ride anymore. I know there's some of you guys that are hoping to ride again someday, but something set you back and you can't get on the bike right now. I do have a couple of friends that I know that are in that situation. They want to ride so bad, and yet they're just not capable of swinging their leg over that seat and going down the road. And they still have hope that I'm gonna get better one day. I'm gonna gonna get on that bike and I'm gonna go. But they haven't been able to pull the trigger on it. And those that can't ride anymore, they miss it. They miss it dearly. Because as we know as bikers, it's a culture. We have other people we ride with. It's a feeling like no other when you get on the bike and you get on the road. It's like a feeling of being able to fly, of taking flight. And when you can do that with other brothers, it even makes it even more interesting. And when you have to drop out from riding the motorcycle, it's almost like you are shunned from the culture. Like you're no longer. You might consider yourself an old biker, but the other bikers kind of forget about you. He can't ride anymore, so good luck to him. But hey, he's going to watch us ride off into the sunset, and that's a sobering thing. I mean, it is a sobering thing. I know there are guys that will decide to spend the money on a trike, or maybe to build their own trike, save a little money. I know the newer one, like the Harley Davidson trikes, for instance, are awfully. You might as well buy a car. They probably cost more than my truck, to be honest with you. So a lot of people can't even afford to buy a trike, even though that would be an option for them. Others, I got another friend who decided to buy a Can-Am because couldn't ride a motorcycle anymore, but the Can-Am, I mean, which is like a snowmobile for the road, the two wheels in the front and one in the back, or the Polaris or whatever they are. And the thing is, they're not really openly accepted by the biker culture. So those guys, even though now they have something to ride, they basically get shunned. And I don't know if they get shunned, but when there's a ride, they don't get the phone call, the motorcycles are all taken off down the road, and they're waiting for that. Why aren't those guys calling? I thought we were gonna ride. Yeah, because I don't know. That's just what's wacky about the motorcycle culture. The bikers. They want to be on two wheels, and three wheels doesn't always cut it. I guess it just depends on the clique that you're in. I've ridden with everybody. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm pretty open-minded anymore. I mean, there was a day in my younger years where it was two wheels or bust, but this past decade, I've just been like, I could care less. As long as somebody wants to ride, I'm good to go. It's all fun, We'll go ride somewhere. We'll get something to eat. We'll ride back. We'll stop, check something else out. Yeah, the thing about aging, though, you get to that point where you just can't hang with the others anymore. And that's, like I said, that is a very hard pill to swallow. But it's an end of life thing. As my uncle said, my 93-year-old uncle, he said, I'm on that 16th yard line, and the defense is all lined up there, and they're waiting to block me, and he said, I got to make it over that last couple yards, over that finish line. But it just seems like such a long way to go, and a hard way to go to get past that offense over that line. He said, once I get over that line, I won the battle. I finished my life, and I move on to a greater place. But he said, until then, that's what I feel like. He said, I could just throw a Hail Mary and it'd be over with tomorrow. But then again, he says, I can keep getting blocked and tackled and knocked down, and who knows how long it'll be before I can cross that goal. He's a character, my uncle. I wish you could all meet him. He's lives in Denver, Colorado. Him and his wife flew out to Cleveland International Airport, and being the weather was so terrible, they got into the airport okay, but they needed a rental car, and they were stuck there like all day waiting for a rental car that was capable of driving in the conditions yesterday that I was telling you about earlier. And so they were literally hours and hours late to getting to the party, but they still made it, and I was glad because it was so good to see him again. He lost two of his sons, one to drugs and another one to alcoholism. My cousins, I knew both of them, good guys, and unfortunately they took the wrong roads. So my uncle had a pretty tough life, pretty to deal with. And you lose your children, that's a hard thing to deal with. My brother, he lost a child, not the one that stayed with me this weekend, but the other one that came with us. He lost one of his son, and that makes life very difficult. The grief. And the grief that I share from losing my wife, I can understand what they've gone through. But, wow, anyway, I don't mean to get off on different tangents because there's a lot going on. There was a lot going on this weekend, but it was a good weekend. It was a full weekend. Now I got to make it through this frigid, cold week of throwing wood in my wood burner and trying to maintain things. And then I think it's going to start warming up a little bit, and I'm looking forward to that. Well, I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me, and I hope you're staying warm. Probably some of you are dealing with adverse weather conditions, I'm sure. Some of you are pretty comfortable, and I'm a little envious of that, I'll have to be honest. Some of you guys are actually in riding weather, which is like really, I'm really envious because you're still riding, and there's like no way you're going to ride up here right now. So, yeah. Yeah, I continue to keep all you guys in my prayers, and I appreciate the prayers too. Thanks for your support. If you appreciate my channel and my videos, hit that like button and subscribe and continue to join me in this walk through life. Till next time, cats, I'll catch you all later.